everybody, it's Anthony Brogdon. It's your main man on the 1 and 2s. I got a good looking lady on the channel today. She gonna blow your mind with some good Black history. See, because what I try to do is I try to find folks that got all kinds of stories, and she got some stories in her family of what her ancestors have done, and it has passed down through the generations, and they are so excited that they're going to keep it going. And so one of the things I hope you get out of this interview, my viewers, is that look into your family and see if there's something that you can benefit from. How about that? I ain't talking, it ain't all got to be about money. It could be a story in your family. It could be an instance that could inspire you or something like that. And so talk to some of the older people and ask them, hey, anything, you can share with me? Being yourself, not me on the show, but it might be something. And check it out. I got several people that have said they got stories that they folks didn't want to tell. So if you don't know, I'm Anthony Brogdon. I'm the host of Strong Inspirations, where I give it to you straight, no chaser. Let me tell you, I try to intoxicate your mind with this Black history. I give you a lemon, a lime, or ice cubes, whatever, so that you walk away stumbling, not DUI stumbling, but stumbling for what you have learned by listening to people like this guest today. Hit the subscribe button, because new videos are coming up often. Hit the like button, because you're going to like this one. Hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up. You get a ding, a notification, a smoke signal, something to say, hey, it's time to watch. There's something new on Strong Inspirations. And then, and I got a lot of videos. Go down the list. You're going to find something that's going to spark your interest. And watch it as you see fit. You can move the cursor, whatever you do, and then share this. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Don't keep it to yourself. Let people know, let it flow, let it grow, so that other people can be intoxicated like you've been. Do that, my friends. Did you see the video I did with the lady who found out that her great-grandfather was lynched? They got to him. Good guy. White man wanted to take over his fruit stand. He smacked the black guy. The black guy smacked him back. He knew he had to leave then. Took the family that night. They left. He went back a few years later to see his father as he had passed, and they never saw him again. Watch that video. How about this one? Did you see the one where and this is she looks white, to be honest with you. I didn't ask her, but she's on the channel where she says she found out she was Creole. She got Creole in her background. Watch that video. Did you see the one where the lady found out, well, no, where the guy found out that his grandfather was on the last slave ship out of Mobile, Alabama? And he's the one who really brought home the point that his dad and others did not want to talk about that for whatever reason. And he heard about it through the grapevine and then did the research. And now he's the president of the Historical Society in his town, helping preserve that history. We jamming here strong. You're going to like this lady on the channel today. Watch out. She got something. She going to say it eloquently. She going to say it eloquently. And she got people in the room with her. They walking around. They happy for her to be able to tell this so that they can watch it later and pass it down through the family. That's how this goes. That's one of the aims of what we do here, Strong Inspirations. Now, as you might know, my friends, I got a movie out. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America, Slaves Who Went to College, and more. It's streaming on Amazon. And then I wrote this book. It's called Black Business Book, It's similar to the movie, but more thorough, more comprehensive. And I am saying, and I had some other people say, it's the #1 Black business history book on the market. There is nothing as thorough as this book. Not this many people. I named 20 slave-owned businesses in my book, 20 and more, actually. Get you a copy. You can learn all about what I'm doing, so on and so forth, on my website, businessintheblack.net. Now, lastly, and as you many have been watching me, you know my favorite word is the word strong. I like strong. I wish my middle name was strong. And strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to the guest today. She's a strong sister, strong lady. Come on and introduce yourself. Let's get it on. Thank you for being on Strong Inspirations.
Thank you, Anthony, for having me. I'm Emily Palmer Garland, and it's so nice to be on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing this with me. And so let me ask you, I got to talk about you kind of personally and just a tad. Where were you born and raised and that kind of thing?
Okay, I was born right here on this land where I'm sitting today talking to you. Out in the country, Milledgeville, Georgia, but it was really Baldwin County because we were way outside the city limits. And the doctor came all the way out here. My grandfather and my dad walked to town, which was like 15 miles to get the doctor to come and deliver me. That was unusual. I was born in 1935. If you were in the country, you were lucky to get a midwife, let alone a doctor.
Okay.
So anyway, this is where I was born.
Let me, since you just brought that up, what does a midwife do compared to a doctor? Do you know that story?
Well, it depends on, how well trained they are or how skilled they are. Back in those days, there were some bad ones and some good ones.
Yeah.
Mother had delivered a baby about 2 years before me, and the midwife came and she cut the umbilical cord too short. They said she was drinking. Some of the midwives were known to be drinkers, and my baby brother died. So that's why they were not taking any risk when I was born. And they went to at the doctor, yes.
Does a midwife have medical training?
Well, back in those days, no. They learned it from the ancestors, from the Indians, from the Africans, how to do that. And some of them were great at it. In fact, I want to refer you to the history of Biddy Mason, Biddy Bridget Mason. I think you already know about her. Yeah, she also was born right down here on this land where I am, Baldwin County, Hancock County. Biddy Mason is known throughout history and very famous in Los Angeles. But she was a midwife who learned the skill here from the Indians, the Native Americans rather, and the Africans. When she went to Los Angeles back in the pioneer days, there was only one doctor to serve most of all of Los Angeles. Don't picture Los Angeles like it is today.
Yeah, sure.
And when she got there as a slave who had been walked all the way from Hancock, Georgia to California, try to roll that around in your head.
Yeah, right.
She was my great aunt. Try to roll that around in your head. A Black woman walking behind a mule train where the white master, she's serving him and she's serving his family and taking care of the cattle that they're taking all the way from Georgia to California. Well, how long do you think it took them to get from Georgia to California? Years, because they stopped all along the way. He was a Mormon and a nomad. So he came to Georgia, he bought her and her sisters, and they traveled with them. But guess what? When she got to California, she connected with other Black people out there and learned that California was a free state. And so she gained her freedom and freedom for all the Blacks and slaves on that mule train. She went on to become the only, I believe, midwife in Los Angeles at the time. The doctor found her to be so skilled until he just turned it all over to her because he had other stuff to take care of. And she became very wealthy. She married a Chinese man out there who was working on the railroads. And together, they took their money they would make from what her work and his work, and they bought real estate. At one time before the Great Flood, she and her husband owned most of downtown Los Angeles. I don't know if
Really?
you knew that. Read the history of Biddy, Bridget Mason.
Wow.
So she was a great midwife. She founded a Black church in Los Angeles that's still thriving. I think they have Biddy Mason Day in Los Angeles. So all Black people should know about my great aunt Biddy Mason. She was a great Black lady. But she was a philanthropist. Of all the wealth that she couldn't use, she gave it away. She helped people, Black and white. It didn't matter to her. And her grandchildren, her sons, they were said to be the richest Black men in Los Angeles at the time. But that's my story on midwives. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna stay on that just a tad then. How about this? Do you know where the plantation is in your family?
The plantation, actually, my people, and when they were enslaved, they were on a plantation, of course. It's right around where we are, okay? And some of this land, I believe, was owned by slave masters before the Civil War. So the land I'm sitting on has a different history. My great-grandfather, Josh Ellis, was a white man. He was
okay, hold on, let me stop you there. I gotta go into that. He raped the lady, you think? Or
no, he did not rape no lady. He did not rape my great-grandmother. So I'm just telling you straight. Now I'm not trying to politically correct.
Okay.
Lie like, yeah, my great-grandfather raped my grandma. No. My great-grandfather, I was gonna tell you, after the Civil War, the land was confiscated from the plantation owners. You know that.
Right.
He bought up all of the land around him very cheap. He had not been a plantation owner. He was a poor white boy who didn't have anything. And before the war, he and his brothers worked as sharecroppers along with Black people.
Really?
Not owning no slaves. No. He had an affinity for Blacks because as a poor white man, he was treated poorly also. But he somehow scraped together enough money, bought land while it was cheap. And he took my great-grandmother, who was freed in 1865. She had been a slave. So he was post-Civil War. She was post-slavery. They got together willingly and lived together and raised their children together. He could not marry her because of the laws in the South, miscegnation it was called. Actually, it was illegal to even live together. So they had to be quiet. He lived out here quietly, but if anybody threatened him, he protected his wife and his children. And when he died, he left everything he had. She had 2 brothers and my grandmother. Everything was left to his children, okay, by his Black wife, Charity was her name. So no, he did not just rape her. He let everything. Have all of this land, and I'll show you the lake if I can. Later years, it was just farmland when he bought it. Actually, it was in the 1950s, I think, when I went away to college in 51, the Georgia Power Company bought a lot of my grandparents' land and flooded it with water and made a lake. But guess what? Now it's very valuable land.
Oh, sure.
And I can show you, hopefully, if my technician will help me. Right next door to us, $1.5 million home was just built and finished, okay?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, all around. I want you to see the beautiful lake and all the homes. Our properties,
Okay, before we get to that, I want to stay on the story just a bit. That'll close us out, let's say. So now, did she get an education?
My great-grandmother?
Yes.
No, she did not get an education, but she was a very intelligent woman. Now, she had been born a slave. She was also what we would call biracial today. She was the product of the plantation owner. She was his child. And he probably did rape her mother. So some white men, especially the plantation owners, some
Oh
of them,
yeah.
yeah. But she did not go to school, but she was well educated. She was an expert seamstress, and that passed down through their family. There were a lot of seamstresses in the family. But their children were well educated. So for example, his daughter, Sally, she was, that's a different story. I won't launch into it, but he sent her away to college. She graduated from Atlanta University. She came back here and became the principal of one of the first Black schools. And they now have an African American museum in her house, in her home house. The Georgia State University restored her home house, started an African American museum in there. My sister was instrumental in getting that done. So long story short, the university bought it, restored her home house, and it's the Sally Ellis Davis African American Museum. She was my great aunt.
Oh, okay. I love it.
Yes, yes. One of my great uncles, he was they called him the Black superintendent of the mental hospital here. That was at that time the largest, one of the largest ones in the country. So he took care, he was over everything really, and they would always have a white superintendent, of course, in charge. And they paid him as a clerk. But anyway, he was, yeah.
Mhm.
But to look at my grandmother's brothers and sisters, you would think they were all white, okay?
Mm.
But they used, white men would use Black men and get over just like they still do today in some situations.
Is there anything, any violence that has come to the family of some sort? The white man seeing y'all got all this land and tried to drive you off the land, or the city saying we mad at you or whatever, anything like that?
No, I can't say there was any violence. My great-grandfather, Josh Ellis, he made sure that his will was so tight that nobody could break it. That was one of his worst fears. He had a brother who was very racist, and he had told him that as soon as you close your eyes, I'm going to make sure Charity is going to get her old hat and she's going to get off of this land. Well, he couldn't do that because my great-grandfather made sure that his children and his wife would be taken care of. But the Georgia power, the state, they were not having it. So what they did, as soon as he died, they came up and took, even though it was, everything was in the will, they took the home house and said that they had to take it by eminent domain because they were getting ready to do something with it. Well, that was way back in about, I guess, I don't know what year Josh died, I guess like 1915, 1918. They didn't get around to using the land for a lake until 1951, I think. So they just wanted her out of there. And what they did, they then rented it out to a white family.
Wow.
No, they couldn't take all of the land, and they paid, my grandparents a pittance, because some of the land they did take from white owners as well. But in later years, my sister went to the courthouse and researched what they paid whites as opposed to what they paid my grandparents who were Black. And there was definitely a big discrepancy.
Sure.
But as far as violence, no, we come from a history in Milledgeville, Georgia, Baldwin County, which, because they owned so many slaves down here, Anthony, it was almost, I think it was majority Black, or half and half. So the Black people on Milledgeville were not taking no Klan, running them out. One of my cousins on another side of the family became the first Black sheriff, I think, in the 40s. And the Klan organized that they were coming to Milledgeville and kill them some, N-words.
Yeah.
And they came down there with their little pointy hats and robes. And my cousin, his name was Dude, we called him Dude Hill. And his brothers, they all looked like white men, and all the Black men in Milledgeville, they met them with their guns. They didn't wait around for no white folks to hang them in Milledgeville.
I got it.
And I don't know how true it is, but I heard. Now, this is not a true, I can't
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
you,
yeah.
but I heard that some of them did threaten Josh Ellis when he was living. And he and his children and black son-in-law, they met him, whoever was threatening him, and I don't think they've ever seen or heard from again. I can't tell you what happened to him.
Yeah, I love it.
But
I
we
love it.
didn't take it. Yeah.
I love it. Now, what? Let me ask you this: on the land, was it cotton or what was the crops back in
Yeah,
slavery
back in
days? Do you
those
know that?
days. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, God, yes. Back when I was a child, my grandfather on this land I'm sitting for, he had a farm, and he raised cotton and corn. He had cattle, he had chickens. We had to take care of all of that. When I was 5 or 6 years old, I would be out here in the country with Papa picking cotton. Picking cotton wasn't bad. I loved it. I had my
Oh,
little
did
sack.
you? You're the only person that says that.
I was a cotton picker, not too proud to say it. Because
Really?
my grandfather only had one child, my mother. They only had one child. She was a girl. So he didn't have any sons to help him. But my mother had 6 children. So I was with my grandparents up until I was school age. And he would take me to the field with him. I would have my little bag for my size, pick my cotton, and he would pay me for my cotton to pick because you'd weigh it. Absolutely. But he would hire people, friends, maybe
Yeah.
cousins, come and help him to harvest. But yeah, we had to chop cotton, and picking wasn't so hard, but I never could learn how to chop cotton because there was a skill to that.
Now,
My sister,
but picking cotton, did you get you get the thorns on your hand, or you know how to get
oh yeah,
around the
well,
thorns?
I had small hands because that didn't last long. I was a little kid, like I said.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had to learn how to it's an art to it. And so the little hole is what is kind of prickly, but
Yeah.
you learn how to get that finger out. I mean, the cotton out with your fingers very nimbly. Yeah, so
Oh,
you don't get that. It wasn't all that bad. It could be hard on your back, though. I guess if you were
yeah,
older, you have to bend over to do it. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Did you uh could you imagine and I know you were young, what slaves went through picking cotton?
yeah, but picking cotton wasn't the hard part, I think. The hardest part was the humiliation, the beatings, the violence, the way they were treated, having no control of your body. Picking cotton was just a job that you didn't get paid for. But when somebody could whip you, could take away your wife, your children, my great grandfather, his name was Ephraim Butts, they sold a lot of his children away to Texas, and he never could find them anymore.
Oh,
That was
really?
the hard part of slavery. We knew we had cousins in Texas, and when slavery was over, he lived to get to be freed. And first thing he wanted to do was walk to Texas and try to find his children that they had sold. That still makes me want to cry. And
Yeah.
when they told him, no, Mr. Butts, there's no way you can walk to Texas. And if you got to Texas, you don't even know where they are. Do you know how big Texas is? You couldn't just go there and find your children. We did not have internet back then. We didn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
TV. We didn't have even telephones, nothing.
Sure.
But that man wanted to walk all the way to Texas to try to find his children that they had sold. And so that was what the slaves lived through, being torn away from their wives, their husbands, their children, being beaten, humiliated.
But you had to worry,
Lisa,
you had to worry about the boll weevils and the insects and the smell and stuff like that. One guy said they, fertilized it to get the boll weevils, and that you had to sniff that all day and the heat and that kind of thing.
but like I'm telling you, that's just the job, dear. That's
Yeah.
not the bad part. People talk
Yeah.
about now because they have life so easy. The bad part was being whipped, beaten, separated
Yeah.
from not having any control over your body. Yeah, they had to fertilize it, of course. You couldn't have the boll weevils eat up all your cotton, then you got
Yeah,
no
right.
sell. You
Right.
got to have product at the end of the year. But my grandfather knew what fertilizers to use, and it was probably a lot safer than all of this Roundup and crap they're selling you today that's killing
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. What did he do with the cotton? Do you know what he did with it after he
Yeah,
picked
you
it?
take it to cotton. Now, my great grandfather Josh, of course, he was dead and gone when I came along, but he had what you call a gin. After you pick the cotton, you got to take it to a gin, and they weigh it. They make sure there are no holes and stems in it. So they're weighing pure cotton. And then you sell it where it goes to market, okay? Depending on how many pounds you got. So my great-grandfather, Josh, he had a general store and a gin, and he took the cotton in, and however they get it to the market, because a lot of that cotton, was being shipped to Europe. The English used most of the cotton, that we produce here in the South. Yeah. So then all my grandfather did after he got it picked and bagged up, he took it to a gin. When Josh died, all of his business, I guess the black children didn't want it or couldn't run it because of the segregation in the South. So he would take it to some place, I want to say a little town close to here called McIntyre. You put it in the wagon and take it over there, and they would do that. They would gin it, and then they'd see how much money you had coming. That's how he made money.
Now, can you imagine being light-skinned that gave you some advantages?
Of
the
course
family?
Of course. It was horrible. But the time we went through, before we got into Black pride and all of that, you had so much infighting in the race between darker skinned people and light skinned people. And then even in families, you had some were light skinned, some were dark skinned. And sometimes, that created problems within a family, because maybe the ones who were darker color felt like the lighter skinned ones were liked better or got more advantages. But I had cousins that left here because of the, it was just a horrible time. My grandmother's nephews, 2 of them, went to Chicago. They could not get well educated down here in Milledgeville. They grew up right out here on this land because her brother, owned the adjoining land. But if they went to town to the black school, which would be the only school they could go to, they would have been tormented by the black kids, the darker kids. And their sister went. She couldn't make it but a couple days, a couple weeks, because she would just cry. And they would call her all kind of names because she looked like she was white. She had blonde hair and blue eyes.
Oh. So, what was her name? Is there a name? Like, what would you call a light-skinned person? What would that, Whitey, or what would, can you imagine?
Yellow. They were considered yellow by black people. By white folks, they were just called the N-word. All of us, didn't matter to them what color you were.
Have you ever been called the N-word?
Huh?
Have you ever been called the N-word?
In Detroit, I think not too many. Well, back when I was working, I was double parked, I guess, by the Renaissance Center, and one guy wasn't moving out of his way fast enough, and he kept, anyway, I wasn't damaging my car, and there was a bus or something. He wanted me to cruise through. I didn't move my car fast enough. He ran up to my window and called me a stupid N woman. That was in Detroit, not in Georgia.
Not in Georgia. Do you remember seeing black and white only signs?
Of course, my dear. I grew up down here. I was born in 35. I left here. We didn't get desegregation. Martin Luther King and all that started in the 50s. So everything was segregated. You couldn't go to a bathroom. All of the places was like colored and white signs everywhere. Drinking fountains, colored and white. You couldn't try on clothes in but one store, and that was one Jewish man was here. He had Goldstein's department store. He was very fair. You could do, he treated everybody alike. The other stores, you wanted to buy something, like at the Vogue, which was a high-end ladies store, you had to take it out as it was. You could not try it on, and you couldn't bring it back if you got home and it didn't fit. Okay. So that was segregation everywhere. The Georgia College was here when I was a child growing up. All I could do was walk past it. Only black people could go in there would be people who were cooks and maids. You didn't go to school there. Our little schools were so segregated. And guess what? They burned my school down. They burned down 2 of them, the black schools. My Aunt Sally had helped to build the school, and the black people, they built it with their own little resources and money, and the state did support it to an extent, but you didn't have books. The books were old secondhand books from the white kids, and a lot of the pages were torn out.
Really?
We didn't have indoor toilets. Oh my God, Anthony, the toilets at my elementary school were horrible. And then one summer while we were out of school, the Klan burned down the school. Now they would do stuff, sneaky stuff like that at night. We didn't have a school. Hadn't been for the Black churches, we wouldn't have been able to go to school at all. That's during my lifetime. So then
What did the Black churches do? Why you say that? They had school in the church?
Okay, first of all, after they burned down our elementary school, yeah, we went to the church. They were like Black churches, Union Baptist Church. That was where I finished grade school, and Flag Chapel. So the churches would open up their doors and tell the teachers, you can come in and teach here, the Black churches. The white folks didn't do anything to right away to make that. We were in churches for maybe 2 or 3 years. So, and then one year after they burned down another school where I lived, there was AME church on one corner, CME church on another corner, and a Presbyterian church, all Black, on another corner. Mm. And my house was right in between all of them. So I was happy. It was like, oh, I got a campus. And we would change classes. You go sit in the pews and the teachers would teach. And they would divide up because the churches were large enough so they may have the 8th grade students over here. So finally, before I graduated high school, they built a high school. But now the old first school I had, the advantage, it didn't have an indoor toilet, but it had a beautiful auditorium, and the Black people would use it for a lot of other events and things. In the new school that they built, that the state, I guess, built, there was no auditorium, but we did have modern conveniences like inside plumbing and that kind of thing. Oh my God, everything was totally segregated. You couldn't even walk the sidewalk. The white folks would knock you down off the sidewalk if they passed by.
Oh, really?
Honey, this is real. I lived it. I couldn't get out of Georgia fast enough, but it's a different Georgia now, you know?
Did you see that happen, or did it happen to you where they kind of bumped into you or whatever you saying?
Bumped into you. One day we were walking to school, my next door neighbor, her name was Etta, and myself, and we were on the sidewalk on our way to school. Etta was closest to where this white man and his daughter, I can see him right now. He had red hair and was wearing a Coca-Cola uniform, and he had his little daughter. And so when we got face to face to him, to them, I didn't even know you're supposed to move off the sidewalk. And I was so arrogant, I wouldn't have done it even if I had known. But my friend was closest to them, and he took his hand and he didn't bump her. He knocked her down on the ground off the sidewalk. Now, her uncle that she was living with, he was our chemistry teacher. And so when we got to school, we ran in the school. I just know, his name was Dr. Reeves. So we ran up to Dr. Reeves and told him what had happened, what this white man had done to Etta, his niece. And you know what Dr. Reeves did?
What?
Hung his head. Nothing a Black man could do.
Nothing you could do. Yeah.
In their 40s to protect their own family. If we had told the police, what the police gonna do? Right. The police said that you should have got your behinds off of that sidewalk. You saw that white man coming.
Wow. Did you? So did you? I know you did, but what was the dynamic of where you live compared to where the white people live? Were they on the other side of the railroad track and that kind of thing?
No, in the little town, because Milledgeville is quite small, I could walk around the corner from my house and be in the white neighborhood, but no white people could live in the same street, the same block with it. No Black people and white people didn't live together. But it was so small until you were not divided by railroad tracks or anything like that.
Yeah. So did you ever play with a white girl?
Heck no. I played with a white girl. To me, they didn't really exist. Because it was almost like you would see them. I would see them coming and walking to school. They would be going to their school. I would be going to mine. But no, it wasn't like that. In my mind, it was like they were not real. Because you had no interaction with them. Their elementary school was right. It was like my house sat on a little hill. Their elementary school was right down below my house, but yet I had to walk miles to school that they later burned down. But if I was homesick or stayed home from school, I could look off my back porch and watch them play. And they had swings, beautiful playground. We had none of that.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Did you So let me, how did that make you feel? Did you feel inferior to white people?
Absolutely. You can't live like that and not feel inferior. And that's why so many Black people today, I think we all should go through therapy. I mean, how we made it through, I don't know, but I think I did have a good self-esteem that was instilled by my family, the Black church, that kind of thing. But yeah, they do always, you're always looking, what do the white people think? Um, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did, well, let me ask you, how about this? We rolling too. You jamming. I thank you so much. What did the preacher say on Sunday? Did he always talk about, are we going to overcome? Did he tell you, like, did he talk about how we survived this? A report of what happened during the week? I'm just assuming. What, there's hope, God is coming, what have you?
No, I went to church all the time. I sang in the little youth choir. I can't remember in that day and age, a Black minister saying one word about it. They just took actions like letting us go to the school and stuff. But back then, Anthony, you got to realize people did live in fear. So that started maybe after we started the civil rights movement. Now, when I went to People's Community Church in Detroit, old Reverend Stewart, that's all he preached. He didn't preach from the Bible anymore. He preached about overcoming the racism, the struggle, what we needed to do to gain our civil rights. But no, back in the 40s in Milledgeville, Georgia, those ministers just preached straight from the Bible. They ain't talk nothing about no racism or getting your freedom or what we're going through. They just didn't. Maybe they were afraid to even mention.
Did you go when you found out y'all were leaving and going up north? What was that day like? What was the planning like? How did you end up in Detroit? That whatever, that kind of scenario.
Okay, I didn't. My family never left. That's why we're still on this property. Many of them never left, but I did. I could not tolerate the South. I had a very, I don't know. I just had pride, and I was not going to be saying yes, ma'am, no, ma'am to little white teenage girls who were clerking in a store, and they would never, they wouldn't even call my mother Mrs. or whatnot. So I just couldn't tolerate it. But the way I got to Detroit, I went to college. I wanted to get out of Georgia as soon as I could. So I graduated high school at 15, and I asked my mom, could I go to college in Ohio? And I went to college, Central State College in Ohio. And when I finished college, I majored in social work. There were no jobs in Georgia. I didn't want to come back here anyway. But then I went to Detroit. I had cousins in Detroit. Back then, if you had extended family, all of them would any of them would open their door to you and take you in and help you get a start. So the cousins I stayed with, they were dissing. Everybody asked me, well, what kin or what cousin? I don't know. I don't care, but I know their blood. And yesterday, my cousin is down here from Detroit because she wanted to come back. She never been here before. And she wanted to walk on what we consider holy grail. So I took her up to the other end of land that was left and where they have a family compound, our people up there. And I don't know, their grandparents had like 21 children, my cousin.
Wow, okay.
So anyway, but I got to Detroit. I left for better economical opportunities in 1955. I graduated college. I went to Detroit and I never came back here to live, even after I went to college. But
really?
we always maintain property here. Yeah.
How did you get there? Did you take the train or the bus? How did you get to Detroit?
How did I get to Detroit? Well, the first time I ever went to Detroit was in the 40s. My sister had married and moved to Detroit, she and her husband. And so they would drive back and forth. So
okay.
We drove most of the times. Yeah. But when I was in college, I would get the bus or the train home.
Yeah.
And that was, believe me, that was an ordeal. They would want to make you sit on the back of the bus. And again, back then, Rosa Parks wasn't the first one to sit on the front of the bus, but somebody told me that didn't count because I was a child. But the first time I was in Detroit, I guess we had drove to Detroit. I don't know how we got there. No, we went to Detroit on the bus. And my sister, she was more humble than I was. She was 5 years older than me, but they said sit in the back of the bus. She sat in the back of the bus. But she was going back home to Detroit. And when I returned to Georgia, I had my younger brother with me. He was only 6 years old. I was 14. So we got in the bus in Detroit. Of course, I sat right behind the driver. But when you get to the Mason-Dixon line, that's when you leave Cincinnati, you're supposed to go to the back of that bus and sit on the back row.
Does the bus driver tell you that, or you just know it?
That that was the law. That's the custom. So when we changed buses in Cincinnati, I said to myself, hell no. I sat right behind the bus driver where I've been sitting. He didn't say anything. So when you have a rest stop and you have to go to get your refreshments, you can eat, go to the bathroom. When we got there, I took Tommy by the hand, my little brother, and we walked right into the white side, sat down and got us some donuts or something. White man held the door open for me.
Oh, really?
I didn't say anything. So I don't know. Somebody said, well, they just did that because they knew you were children. Or maybe they thought you were Mexicans or something. Because back then, you could be any other race but Black, okay?
Yeah.
So Mexicans, all of them. So maybe they did because my brother was fair skinned and he had a speech impediment like tied tongue, they call it.
Yeah.
But they didn't know what he was saying.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, let me stay on that. And we're moving up the timeline here. We're doing good, and we're gonna see the link. Because he and maybe you don't look as much as he does. You can say how that goes, but he looked white. Because he had played that off. Did he try to play that off at one point to say, okay, I'm one of you all or something? Because I know there were Black people who looked white who did do that, who played for white.
I started to tell you a long time ago about my cousins who went to Chicago. They looked like white men. They passed for white. And without any formal education, they owned liquor stores and all that. And what's the name of this place? Cicero, I want to say Cicero, Illinois is outside Chicago. The white people, Black people were not allowed. It was like Dearborn in Detroit.
Yeah.
They lived there, they married white women and they passed for white. But you mean my brother? No. We would never think of, my brother wouldn't want to do anything like that. No.
Well, okay, stay on that one. One more. The ones that did they come back to the family? Did they eventually reunite with the family, or they just was gone forever?
Oh, they were not like estranged from their family. They chose that life to better themselves financially. So yeah, they would have to sneak into Milledgeville because of segregation. That was the other, because of the color of their skins. If they tried to follow the law because they knew they were Black and go to the back of the bus or something, they would get berated and probably thrown in jail. You a white man down here. What you doing trying to
really?
Yeah. So what they would do, one of them, they didn't usually drive down. Yeah, I met them when I was a child. So they said like Thomas, he was a blue-eyed blonde. He would come in, he would put a hat on his head and what they say, tip it down over his eyes, mind his business, get out here to the country and never leave the country. Now they had one brother, his name was Warren, and he went to California instead of Chicago. And he was adamant that he would never pass for white. He did not even date a light-skinned woman. He married twice. Both his women were wives were very dark. And he hated the fact that they would always assume he was white. So they had a little summer job, peach plant up here somewhere close to Georgia. My two sisters was working out there and Warren, he had some more cousins. So they assumed Warren was white and they gave him a job as the supervisor overseer. Yeah. So every chance he got, he was shooting the breeze with his cousins and everything. And so one of the white owners pulled him into the office and he said, don't you know you can't be fraternizing with colored folks? Yeah, they call us colored folks. You can't be fraternizing with colored folks like that. And he said, what you mean? He said, they told him, well, those women are colored. You can't be talking to him. He said, well, he used the N-word. He said, I don't know who you're talking about. I'm a nigga. Those are my cousins. And I didn't know.
He gave up. He gave up on it.
He wasn't trying to pass. No, they assumed. And he told them this. He said, I didn't know. They said, you should have told us you were not a white man. He said, I didn't know I had to go around with a sign on my back that said Nigger. And he walked off. Yeah. And when they all went to the service, to the military. That was during World War II. So when Warren got back from the service, he stopped in California. And he said he never wanted to. Oh, they put him in jail in Milledgeville. He came home on furlough from the service and he was in uniform. He took out a Black woman, a very light-skinned Black woman. They were sitting upstairs, and down here in the movies, the Black people had to sit up in the balcony. White folks sat downstairs. So that's the way they segregated the movies. So he did what he was supposed to do. He and the young lady went into the balcony. Police came up there, grabbed him, put him in handcuffs, put him in jail, and said, "Soldier, I don't know where you came from, but you in the South now. You do not fraternize with colored folks down here. You're breaking the law." Put him in jail. And so my daddy, the Black man who was the janitor or something at the jail, soon as he got off, he ran up to our house and he told my mother, because Warren was her first cousin, he said, "Miss Allen, they got your cousin up there in jail." And so my daddy went up there and got him out. And Warren, he was a soldier in uniform. And he said, no, he would never live in Georgia again. None of them could live in Georgia because they were just fair for Black and too, too fair for Black and too Black for white. So no, he lived in California until he died. He was a carpenter, built his own home and married a very dark-skinned lady. And she's the sweetest thing. She tickled me to death. She said he tried to, I was standing in the bank. That's how I met him. And he came up to me and asked for a date. And I told him, "No, sir, I don't date white men."
Wow.
And he said, "But miss, I'm not a white man." And so she still didn't believe him. And he got one of his colored Black friends to go to her and explain who he was. And they got married. And she said that was the best husband. She had been married.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this, and we're gonna move up the timeline. But this came to mind. When you was a kid in Milledgeville, under all this distress and cloud, how did you have fun? What was a good day?
Oh, we had fun all the time. It was like, to me, the white folks didn't exist, except if you came face to face with them and they're pushing you off the sidewalk. But I had same kind of fun you had in high school.
Yeah,
We didn't have the same resources, but they had ball games. You had friends. They had parties after school. You went
Okay. Did you go to what about your prom? Was it a Black only prom and that kind of thing?
You don't want to get started on prom. Prom, I need to tell you too before we sign off that I wrote a book, A Voice to the Ancestors.
Oh yeah, please, we're gonna plug that.
Yeah. But anyway, I went to my first prom. They have what they call junior senior prom. I guess they do that all over. So my junior year, it was had nothing to do with race and the white folks. But anyway, that one was ended up to be an ordeal because the guy I wanted to go with, my mother didn't approve of, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It ended up being a bad scene. But yeah, had proms. Even my grandmother had a prom. I had one of her little bags that she took to her prom.
Really?
My grandmother graduated high school and all that. Like they were at least the high school level.
Yeah. Okay, well, I know I'm jumping around. Okay, in Milledgeville, what was the Black store that you could go to for groceries and pop and chips and stuff like that? Was it a Black owned store?
No, they didn't have the Black stores like grocery stores. They had a couple Black restaurants, a Black drugstore, and they had some saloons, like where you buy beer and wine and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
They didn't have no Black. Oh, they had some store. Wait, I take that back. In the communities, there was, I think, the Davis family had like what you would call a mom and pop store.
Yeah.
But not down. Yeah, not down.
Yeah. So now, you in Detroit. Did Detroit blow your mind? Being a big city with all these people and Black people doing well or something like that because they're working in the plant. How was that different than in the South? That's I guess what I'm asking.
It was different. It was larger, but as far as the racism in Detroit was even almost worse than in the South when I first got there.
Really? I've heard people say that.
Oh yes, I called it up South. Now I got out of college with a college degree, and I didn't know my worth. I admit that nobody had prepared me how to look for a job, and so I was going around looking for jobs that were way below my pay grade. And the treatment that I got, I know I went to one place, they had advertised, I think, for a secretary. I didn't have any business there. I didn't even know how to type, but man didn't know that. When I went there to respond to the ad, he literally slammed the door on my foot and told me, we don't hire colors. The housing was all segregated. You know, we were forced to live where we lived. You didn't have an option. Like it wasn't until much later that we could move into the suburbs and into mixed neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So you didn't have an option. When I first got to Detroit, most of the Black people lived on the east side, Black Bottom, or what they call the North End.
Right.
Like that. And it wasn't that people started spreading out after the civil rights movement. Yeah.
Right.
So I was not that in awe of it, because in the South, you knew what all the signs where you stood. In Detroit, you didn't know. So even after I got my first job with civil service and all that, we would go out to lunch sometimes at restaurants downtown Detroit, but you always had to stop and ponder which ones were going to serve you. They wouldn't tell you you couldn't come in. They just let you sit there and nobody would ever wait on you.
Oh, really?
Yes. So we had to figure out before we went out to lunch, which restaurants we could go to that would, you know, give you service.
Yeah.
Yep. And there was a Howard Johnson at the time up in Highland Park. And a lady I worked with, she was a social worker and her husband was a lawyer. And they went up there one day to, I guess that was like in the late 50s. They went up there one day, you know, just for dinner. And they would never serve them. So her husband brought a lawsuit. And I guess the NAACP and all got into it. And that's how the Howard Johnsons and some of the restaurants became desegregated in Detroit. But it was an uphill battle. Yes, dear.
Well, okay. Well, one more, then I want to go see the lake and that kind of thing. When was, if there's a day or years or something like that, that you would say everything changed a little bit? Was it when the civil rights law came in place, or Brown versus Board of Education came in play? What do you remember that said, oh man, okay, something has happened here that it's gotten better for us?
I think when I fully felt that we were freer to move around and do what we want to do was maybe in the late 60s, early 70s. That's when I got my job. As you know, you may know or not know, I was executive director of Lulabelle Stewart Center in Detroit, an agency parenting and pregnant teenagers.
Yeah.
And before that, we those nonprofit agencies, they did not have any Black directors. I think there maybe was one or two Black directors.
Right.
In the whole spectrum of nonprofit agencies in Detroit. So I was selected, but I had done a set-in when I was in Wayne State working on my master's. We organized a march to United Community Services, which is now United Way, ring the table at their board meeting, demanding that they have more Black directors. As an indirect result, that's how I got my first job.
I love it.
And that was in 1972. So I began to feel more empowered, more of a human. And right after that, we were able to move out a little further into neighborhoods that had once been restricted by law and all that.
Right.
So it was in the 70s.
In the 70s. Okay. Can you show us the well, hold on. Do you have your book there, and then we'll walk around last?
You know what? I'm down here at the lake and I don't have one of
You
my
don't have now. What's the name of the book and how do people get it? That kind of thing.
Okay. It's Giving a Voice to the Ancestors. And I try to, in that book, trace my ancestors all the way back through slavery. And to the last one that came, and my cousin and I, we're still trying to really authenticate her name and who she was. Because, you know, when they brought slaves over, they changed their names. and they took the slave master's last name, but even that first they decided, but they called her Judy, and she came over after the Middle Passage, I think after slavery was illegal, because my grandfather would talk about her. And he said she could barely speak English, but she had told them all about the ship and coming over and that. So the book goes deep into my ancestors, the Black ones, some of the white ones. And it's available on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon.com. All
Okay.
day, very
Okay.
easy. Giving a Voice to the Ancestors by Emily Palmer Garland.
We're gonna put that in the description, everybody. Now you say you think you can just walk and show us the lake and that kind of thing, what you can show us. That's a big lake.
Oh yeah, it goes a long ways, Anthony. It's not just a pond. It's a big lake.
That's a big lake.
Uh-huh. You know who used to have property up here? You have Sonny, Cher Bond, what was her name?
Sarah Vaughn?
Cher Bond, what was her name? Oh Lord, Cher. Let's just go by Cher, I think.
Oh, Cher, the singer, yeah.
Yeah, she was married to Greg Allman outside.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, and they had a lake house up here, but they're $1 million homes. Yeah.
So y'all owned all that land and the lake?
All of you can see, and much further was owned by my grandparents. Because see, my mother was an only child. So she inherited, and that was just her mother's side. Now on her brother's side, there was more land. It went on and on. And then when you left their land, you got into our relatives on the other side of the family. So we are most of this stuff out here.
Did y'all name it something? Is it named in your family? Is it like a little town, or is it just a neighborhood, or what?
No, it was just rural land, honey, until they started all of this stuff on the lake. So no, we didn't give it a name like the guy now. I don't know if you can see. How can I show him this house next door, Will? This house was just built, and this man is still moving in. And ironically, he's from Berkeley, Michigan.
Oh, really?
And so this house that he just built, see a house?
Yeah.
Okay, that house he just built for 1.5 million.
Wow.
And it's not nearly as big as my house, but we are in right here, my son's house.
Yeah.
But he's put in a swimming pool, he's put in his boathouse and everything. Yeah, so the man next door to us is from New Jersey. Some people, wealthy people, they just come down and build these houses and just use them for vacation.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Now,
what a story.
Can you see
it? I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the way it looked when I grew up. Yes, just trees and fields. All the fields are gone, of course. No water. Yep, and of course we lived up closer. Now you have to come all the way down a long drive to get down to the lake. But back then, where the lake is, that my grandfather had fields and stuff out there. But yeah, these are the woods. Georgia has mostly, as you know, pine trees. So out here you see all Georgia pines.
Yeah. I see it.
Yep.
That's gorgeous. Gorgeous. Beautiful story. Beautiful story. I see it. So I want to say, let me ask you this. Is there a question that I have not asked you, something that you wanted to say?
Let me think.
Because it might be, it might not be.
I kind of even mentioned my history from Louisville, and I wanted to get Emily Palmer Garland, because back in the day when I was working, people knew me as Emily Palmer. Okay. So if there are Detroiters who chime in to your video, I'm the same Emily Palmer.
Okay.
Just white hair.
Right, I got you. Well, hey, everybody, this is what I do with Strong Inspirations. I find these people and I let them do the talking and do my best to ask some intelligent questions. And I didn't have to do nothing but steer her in the direction, because she is on, and she lived it. She lived this.
Yes, I did. This is my life.
And came out smiling and looking good, got beautiful family. How about this, everybody? White folks, you can't stop us.
Absolutely.
We can't be stopped, and we win. And here's a win.
One thing, Anthony, I believe in strong inspirations.
Yeah.
And I tell all of my children and descendants, if my great great aunt Biddy Mason could walk all the way to California behind a mule train and end up owning half of Los Angeles back in the day, then you can do anything.
There you go.
There you go.
That's the closing remark. Everybody hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. Hit the like button on this video. If there was a love button, I'd say hit that. Because I love it. Hit that notifications bell for when the videos come up. You get a ding, something like that, and tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. I'm going to keep giving. This is my mission, my ministry in many respects, to share this and let the people do the talking. This is where you find it. Straight, no chaser, my friends. And so to you, I say this, and I mean this with all sincerity. First of all, thank you for doing this with me. And I mean it with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, keep telling your kids and everybody else of how you live and where you are through those experiences. You're enlightening the crowd. And your folks have a special background that they all were, let's say, smart enough to take advantage of it. Determined enough, tenacity, resilience to take advantage of this. Because way back when somebody said, we got to do it differently here. And that's where you see the benefits of this, my friends. You see that big home where the man used to own it. The house is bigger than that. And all that good stuff. So thank you for doing this, everybody. I'll say so long, we out. Bye-bye.